governmental support. As a result, the government forfeited $60 million to the contractors, and rail transport in Lagos and Nigeria stalled for over 20 years. One of Fela's hit songs was based on the disappearance of 2.8 billion naira in missing money that was stolen under Buhari's watch as Petroleum Minister and head of the NNPC in 1978.
2.8 billion naira, oil money is missing. 2.8 billion naira, oil money is missing. Then set up inquiry, they say money no lost you, and Dabaru everybody.
Under intense public pressure, the Shagari government, which took over shortly thereafter from the military regime, set up a Senate probe which traced the money to a London Midland bank account belonging to Buhari. The value of 2.8 billion naira in 1978 was $3 billion, or in today's naira value, 555 billion naira. The existence of this bank account in Buhari's name was later revealed in an interview by the leader of the Nigerian Senate on national broadcaster NTA. When the NTA interviewer reported this, she lost her job. But the woman went to court and presented all the evidence and won a case of wrongful dismissal. Predictably, the first act of Buhari and his cohorts once they were in power was to ransack the Senate and destroy all papers relating to the 2.8 billion naira probe. To summarize the state of security under Buhari's regime, Professor Wole Soyinka expressed shock that any Nigerian would ever contemplate voting for Buhari as a president. According to Soyinka in court, Buhari enslaved the nation. He gloated and glorified in a master-slave relation to the millions of its inhabitants. It is astonishing to find that the same former slaves, now free of their chains, should clamour to be ruled by one who not only turned their nation into a slave plantation, but forbade them any discussion of their condition. A documentary currently showing on Nigerian television, entitled The Real Buhari, gives insight into the state of affairs at the time. The Buhari government, in persecuting its war on corruption, gave the National Security Organization, NSO, unprecedented powers of arrest and detention. The regime enacted the State Security of Detention of Persons Decree No. 2, which gave the NSO the power to detain anyone suspected to be a security risk indefinitely. All forms of freedom were restricted, and there was severe deprivation of fundamental human rights under Decree 2. Under this decree, journalists were hung, drawn and jailed, and more than a dozen press houses were closed down. Labour unions and professional associations were proscribed and banned. The Nigerian Medical Association, the National Association of Resident Doctors, National Association of Nigerian Students, and the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The Nigerian Bar Association later invalidated all proceedings of Buhari's military tribunals. The National Security Organization, Nigeria's first secret police, intimidated, harassed and detained protesters, demonstrators, students, lecturers, critics, activists and civil servants who dared to embark on strikes. People convicted of other crimes were also treated to severe punishment and denied access to appeals and proper judicial processes. Gladys Iyama, locked in a federal maximum security prison, was a crippled mother of 2 paraplegic children and was the first woman in the history of Nigeria to be sentenced to death by firing squad. The Buhari government knew the implication of executing a paralyzed mother of two, and the sentence was secretly approved. The Gloria Okon case was another example. In 1985, Gloria Okon was arrested at a Nigerian airport on drug trafficking allegations. The case was traced to persons in government who had provided security support for their drug couriers. Gloria Okon was said to have died in detention. The cause of the death was kept secret. To date, Gloria Okon is a mystery. On the 20th of March 1984, the Buhari regime launched what it called a war against indiscipline.
To little but important everyday manifestations of indiscipline, such as rushing into buses, constituting ourselves into public nuisances, working without commitment. Up to this moment, there has been no formal declaration of war against indiscipline. It is my pleasure, therefore, to declare today the launching day for the war against indiscipline.
The war against indiscipline highlighted real small-scale problems that Nigerians experienced, but the way that Buhari's government went about addressing them was brutal and disproportionate, and made the regime unpopular with ordinary Nigerians. Many Nigerians will never forget horsewhip lashes that lacerated their backs for not queuing up at bus stations, or for even dropping a piece of paper. Soldiers beat up policemen on the streets, civilians were regularly harassed by military men. The situation quickly became intolerable. Men were forced to do frog jumps and were humiliated in front of their wives and children. Taken together, these draconian measures brought protests and criticisms from journalists and the general population, but Buhari's regime moved quickly to crush dissenting voices. There was the authoritarian Decree 4, under which it was a punishable offence for anyone to publish any material that was deemed embarrassing to any government official. Journalists were arrested and could be charged with criminal public order offences, even if what they had written was true. On Decree 4, Buhari has remained unrepentant. It did not matter whether the story reported was true or not. If my regime did not like it, the writer would go to jail. Using this draconian decree, which allowed for indefinite detention of political opponents, the government of General Muhammadu Buhari sentenced the singer Fela Kuti to 10 years in jail. Ransom Kuti, the singer's brother and a prominent doctor, used the Medical Association as a platform to campaign for the release of his brother and other political prisoners. But Ransom himself was jailed in response to his efforts to achieve justice. The austere society that the Buhari regime attempted to create made reference to other regimes, such as that of the Taliban in Afghanistan, that used everyday violence and intimidation to crush freedom amongst the population.
The impression that was created in the minds of people in the time of Buhari, especially Buhari and Idiago,